Bears here and the 49ers, who have now thawed out, and they come back home from Buffalo without Christian McCaffrey, without Jordan Mason. Obviously, tragic what Trent Williams and his wife going through right now, the loss of a baby, stillborn, just heartbreaking. Absolutely heartbreaking. And we send our best to his family. Trent Williams, one of my favorite people in the league, hands down. Big picture of the 49ers, they're just not good. And their season, as Chris Collinsworth said, for all intents and purposes during that Sunday night game, is kind of sort of over. I mean, this game, two teams that we thought would go to the playoffs, this is the 14 seed visiting the 11 seed. Oof. Now, everything we just said about the NFC West, the 49ers could make a run. Right, they're facing a Bears team that has lost 6 in a row, that just fired its head coach, that has not won a game on the road this year. They're 0-5. The craziest stat of all time, Matt Eberflus, what do you think his record was during Sunday afternoon road games? So Sunday afternoon. So
you're talking 1 p.m. or 1 p.m. and 4?
Right. I'm sure there was a Sunday night road game somewhere, but Sunday afternoon road games, what do you think his record was as head coach of the Bears?
He'd have to have 6 wins.
0-18.
Okay. That's as bad as you can be.
Sunday after. So this team does not win on the road like in your normal 1 or 4 o'clock Eastern time window or 12-3 Chicago time. They don't. Like, they haven't. They don't know what they like. That is not in their bag. They don't have that club. I do think this changes this week, and I think they get the new coach bounce. I think Thomas Brown is going to give them that bounce. You talk to the Bears locker room this week. They're refreshed. It's a different vibe, which is not unique. That is very often the case when you get an interim head coach. And I think they use that to their advantage this week against a team that has lost back-to-back games by 25 or more points. That just doesn't happen. It's only the 4th time in franchise history. McCaffrey's out. Mason is out. Garendo's the starter, who, by the way, has some game. Like a lot of game. Go back and look at his Louisville tape. Go back and look at some of his NFL tape this year. The guy can roll. But I think this is setting up. As you could just build your offseason topic bars right now for the bottom of your screen. A referendum on Brock Purdy in the last month. You have Deebo that hasn't gotten more than like 20 yards from scrimmage in each of the last 3 or 4 games. Right.
Yeah, he did it all on kick returns last week. Yeah.
Right. So you have all the weapons banged up, and it's what can you do, Brock Purdy, to elevate your team? And we are now in a final month referendum on what Brock Purdy's contract should look like, whether that's fair or not to him. And I would argue it is unfair to him. That's what you're looking at down the stretch. As Florio throws out this, maybe the Bears should trade for Kyle Shanahan. I don't think that's not going to happen. I don't believe that will happen. We're looking at what do you pay? What do you pay Brock Purdy? Because his yards per attempt have plummeted, like historically plummeted from last year to this year. All the weapons are gone. Look, but people will come back and say, well, he doesn't meet that elite big contract status. And without all the weapons, is he really that good? And I think that's unfair to him. But I think this last month for the 49ers is going to get really interesting.
And Daniel Jones scares everyone. What happened with the Giants scares everyone. You pay that, sure. you put money on Good that point. Position, and it doesn't work perfectly. And Jones, remember, this was Daniel Jones coming off of a playoff appearance and a playoff win when they gave him that money. So it was at the height of Daniel Jones feeling like something. And this is obviously this is not at the height of Purdy doing what he has done. And remember, the last time these two teams met up, this was in Chicago, but that was Trey Lance versus Justin Fields, an ugly loss for the Niners. And that was actually the end of Lance. That sort of was the beginning of Purdy going on the win streak and making what was then an NFC championship appearance run. They didn't make it to the Super Bowl that season, but it was Purdy magic sort of happened from that. It really feels like San Francisco has gone from the team nobody want to face in the playoffs to nobody gonna face in the playoffs.
Oh, no, they're not making the playoffs.
It's just
like,
right. It's done.
Again, this is not an I told you so. I just haven't seen it all. The Niners have 2 kinds of seasons: a go to the Super Bowl season or an everybody is hurt season. Now, sometimes they've had a go to the Super Bowl fighting through all the injuries, especially at quarterback. We've seen that before. But this is one of those everyone is hurt season, and they're not doing it.
And many times they've turned it around. Many times they've been in that 4-3 area on the season, even 3-4, and then made a run to the NFC Championship. This just seems like too much of an uphill battle. It's simply not going to happen. One other number here, the last one on this. Niners red zone defense. Teams are scoring on 70% touchdowns on 70% of red zone appearances against the Niners. Worst in football. So again, you're thinking about the Niners, you're assuming defense, and yet it has absolutely not been there defensively for these Niners.
And they haven't had a takeaway recently. So their last 4 games, the Raiders the last 3 years have been historically like the worst team of the NFL when it comes to takeaways. Like historically bad. The Niners have 1 takeaway the last 4 games. Only the Raiders have fewer, which would be 0. So it's not just Brock Purdy and all the offensive pieces banged up, including the left side of the offensive line, right? It is everything kind of sort of falling apart for them. I'm not dancing on the Niners' graves. Please don't misunderstand me. I just don't see it coming together. And it's going to be a really interesting offseason because everyone points out how much cash the Browns have spent. Look at the 49ers cash spent, including during the season, locking up Jamador Lenore, well-deserved. But this team is an expensive team, and it's a team that hasn't gone anywhere for a litany of reasons this year. I think the Bears win this, and I think they get the new coach bounce here. And as much as Caleb has been kind of sort of part of the issue, he hasn't turned the ball over. In this 6-game losing streak, he hasn't thrown a pick. And I want to commend him, Caleb Williams, because he was willing to, this week, say that in the final moments of the game on Thanksgiving, he should have sped up the operation. He needed to get the team to the line faster and get that play called faster and get the snap made sooner. That's what I said. I said that Matt Eberflus should be commended. Eberflus should be commended for not throwing his quarterback under the bus. Eberflus is to blame in the end. He's the head coach. He's in charge. He should have called timeout when he saw that Caleb wasn't getting the team lined up and the snap executed. But the quarterback should have been a lot faster. And he's coming back to California for the first time since I believe his last game was a loss to UCLA. I could be wrong. Caleb Williams is back, and I think the Bears are going to win this one and get that bounce.